proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. These words are inscribed in the Liberty Bell and are taken from Leviticus 25:10. I will now ask a series of questions, which I would like everyone to answer with a show of hands, and I'd like the adults and guests to participate as well. Do you truly love America? Do you believe that all men are created equal and born with certain inalienable rights, including life, liberty, and property? These rights are endowed upon all of us by our gracious Creator. But no matter how natural or righteous our right to freedom may be, it is one of the hardest blessings to attain and retain. This is part of what made the American Revolution so miraculous. It was one of the only times in history when a people came together and were united in the cause of achieving this very liberty. Our founding fathers fought, bled, and died together for the glorious cause of freedom. And what is truly amazing is that they not only won their freedom, but they managed to establish a government that maintained this crucial liberty. An insurrection that ends in peace and prosperity was and is something almost unheard of. The French Revolution, for example, although inspired by the American Revolution, ended in anarchy and mob rule. So how was America's revolution any different? Were we just lucky? Once the war was won, the only thing that stood between freedom and certain failure was the establishment of the rule of law. Not to protect the people from themselves, but to protect the people from the government. The Constitution did this. In most revolutions, before and since then, in victory, the leaders of the revolt would establish their own power and become the same dictatorship they claimed to have opposed. This is what is so unique and so extraordinary about the American Revolution. The Americans who founded our nation did not only fight against the literal tyranny of Britain, they fought against the concept of tyranny itself. The founding fathers had the insight to lay down a government that stood for the people, not for centralized power and total control. The leaders of the American Revolution did not want power. They wanted the preservation of the liberty that they fought for, and they wanted future generations to savor this freedom as well. Without the Constitution, the glorious cause would have been lost, and the United States of America would have just been another example of a failed rebellion. The Constitution is literally the skeleton of America. Without it, all of the success and wealth of this nation will fall. This is why the Constitution is so vital to the survival of the great American experiment. This country, growing off the bones of the ideals set in the Constitution, has not only survived, but thrived. The freedom to pursue your dreams in America has led to an unprecedented boom in knowledge and ingenuity. Civilization has evolved in 2 centuries in what would have taken millennia. However, there are some looming questions that have been hanging in many Americans' minds. Will America continue to succeed? Will America continue to be the light of the world? Do Americans still have the same passion for the natural liberty they did 2 centuries ago? Or is the glorious cause forgotten and left behind? Do we take our freedom so for granted that we no longer choose to believe in it, let alone fight for it? Are you, the American people, ready for a brave new world? It should not come as a surprise that the life force of the American experiment has declined over the last 100 years. This decline is due to an ever-growing lack of respect for the ideals and divine rights upon which this country was founded. This lack of respect is occurring in both the government body and the body of the people. Since the establishment of socialist policies in this nation, the attacks against individualism and the concept of freedom itself have been innumerable. The more that Americans became dependent upon the government and not themselves, the more they came to doubt and even despise the principles of freedom. Self-reliance and self-governance has decreased dramatically and has been replaced by an overwhelming dependency on the government's helping hand. People rely on the power of riches and human rule, yet they ignore and repel one of God's most precious and basic gifts. Jeremiah 34:17 reads, "Therefore, this is what the Lord says. You have not obeyed me. You have not proclaimed freedom for your fellow countrymen. So I now proclaim freedom for you, declares the Lord. Freedom to fall by the sword, plague, and famine. I will make you abhorrent to all the nations of the earth." When people give up their control to a governing human power, they lose their freedom. And consequently, they will lose their prosperity and happiness as well. It is our duty, as citizens of the United States of America and children of God, to preserve liberty. In order to do this, we must protect the Constitution. We cannot rely on our representatives, so it is ultimately in our hands. But what can we do? It is essential that we raise our voices and proclaim liberty throughout all the land. Too often it seems that no one is listening, but if enough of us unite once again in the cause of liberty, I believe that we will ultimately prevail. We must remind our misguided leaders and all Americans that our right to life, liberty, and property comes from God, not from government. Parents, this evening, take action in defense of liberty. Reclaim our God-given rights. Please join over 12,000 other Americans and sign the Petition for Redress of Grievances. Next fall, this petition will be presented in Washington, D.C. I leave you with the words of Jefferson. All that tyranny needs to gain a foothold is for people of good conscience to remain silent.